They sort of said to me, you have a dangerous job. I've known that. I didn't know it was quite as dangerous when I ran very innocently for president, but I'm very happy with the job we've done. And, you know, consequential, really, if you're a consequential president, you're in much more danger than if you're not a consequential president. Most presidents are not very consequential. They don't do the job that they're supposed to be doing.
For the third time in 3 years, a gunman targeting our president, President Trump. Welcome to the Big Money Show. I'm Dagan McDowell, along with my co-hosts, Taylor Riggs, Brian Bremberg. And with us for this hour, Fox Business contributors Lou Bassanese and Jonathan Hoenig. The accused shooter expected to be arraigned this afternoon in federal court in Washington, D.C. Darren Botello is standing by with the very latest on that. Hey, Darren.
Hi, good afternoon, Dagan. We know the suspect, 31-year-old Co Allen of Torrance, California, is in federal custody right now and is expected to appear before a federal judge right here in Washington, D.C. at 1:45 Eastern Time. And Allen is described as a, quote, lone wolf whack job by President Trump. He's a Caltech-educated engineer and a part-time teacher. Investigators say he traveled all across the country by train to target Trump administration officials. And he didn't come quietly. He charged a security checkpoint at the Washington Hilton. You can see it right there in that security footage. During, of course, the White House Correspondents Dinner on Saturday night, armed with a shotgun, handgun, and multiple knives. We also have an update on the brave victim of this attack, a Secret Service agent who was shot at close range during the struggle to subdue Cole Allen. The president revealed in his briefing that the officer's bulletproof vest actually saved his life, and we've since learned he's been released from the hospital. President Trump described the chilling moment the First Lady realized they were in danger.
I thought it was a tray going down. Melania was very cognizant, I think, of what happened. I think she knew immediately what happened. She was saying, that's a bad noise. And we were whisked away because it was a matter of seconds before we were out the door and gone.
Now, as for the investigation, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche saying the FBI is searching Cole Allen's California home right now as we speak. FBI Director Kash Patel was on Fox actually this morning and says all questions related to the investigation will be answered later today after the suspect, Cole Allen, appears at that hearing here in Washington, D.C. at federal court.
This was almost the entirety of the president's cabinet, the president, vice president himself, and 2,000 members of the media. This is something the movies don't even write about, something like this kind of scenario, this kind of tragedy. And thankfully, the quick reaction of law enforcement, we're going to be able to present to the world in less than 36 hours almost exactly what happened.
The Trump administration is wasting no time pointing to this very breach as the ultimate justification for the proposed White House ballroom. The ballroom right now is under construction. It's being built using mostly private funds. I want to emphasize that, and is expected to be bulletproof, drone-proof, and completed by 2028. Dagan?
Thank you so much, Darren Botello in Washington. Brian, to you first on this. So the charging document will be the criminal complaint. It will include a sworn affidavit from the Secret Service agent. A big chunk of what the government knows will be in this document, including potentially any admissions from this man, Cole. Also, according to Jim Trusty, former federal prosecutor, there is a good chance that the government goes ahead and charges attempted assassination because of what you can infer and the intent in that from the cross-country trip and the manifesto that is out there.
Yeah, I've seen...
And that carries a life sentence, attempted assassination.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I've seen people try to argue against that, kind of in the early reactions to what happened. I do not understand, as a non-lawyer, how you can argue against somebody who's taken a trip across the country going to the Hilton in D.C. where the president is and not think that this is an assassination attempt. We shall see what he says. Okay, so as I evaluate this whole thing, I look at what we're hearing and what we're seeing about this guy's reasoning, his manifesto, and so forth. What sticks out to me is how absolutely mainstream, in terms of mainstream kind of leftist media, how mainstream what he says and thinks really is. It is shocking to me. And so let me just put a couple pieces out there that made me think about that. We talked a lot about Hassan Piker last week, right? This New York Times fawning piece where he goes on to talk about how the killing of Brian Thompson, the United Healthcare CEO, could be justified, right? Because he's a social murderer. Okay, so that was New York Times last week. Now, here's a couple things I didn't catch last week that were also last week. This Jimmy Kimmel thing, okay? He referred to Melania Trump as an expectant widow. I don't care what the context is. I don't care at all what the context is. The fact that he said that is another point out there. And then Hakeem Jeffries, in talking about the Virginia redistricting, did this battle cry. We are in an era of maximum warfare everywhere, all the time. That's the House Minority Leader, okay? So I think about those things. I think about, bigger contextual things like no Kings rallies, okay, which we've all seen those, and we've seen the rhetoric at those. All of that, and then I look at this guy, Caltech educated. He's a teacher. He was, by all accounts, a normal guy in the community. And I think he didn't have to go to any dark corners to be radicalized. He didn't have to find a weird spot on the web. He didn't have to emerge from the darkness. All he had to do was swim in the mainstream of the left in America, and he's got all his arguments, all his logic right there for him. And that is our problem. This is out in the open. It's not coming from dark corners.
I want to jump in on that. We need to start having a very serious conversation about young men in their 20s and 30s and what's happening. And Brian, you pinpointed maybe some of what's happening. I'll talk about Caltech in a minute, but between the young man in Butler, the Charlie Kirk assassin, the United Healthcare CEO, another attempt. There are these young men in their 20s and 30s who somehow feel so disenfranchised, or you have a media that's telling them that it is actually now morally acceptable for you to take the fight into your own hands and kill people, and it is somehow justified because these people that you're trying to kill are so wrong and bad. I want to be careful because we don't have all the facts about Caltech. I'm going to read statistics about Caltech, knowing he may or may not have been radicalized there, and I don't want to, again, we'll wait till more facts come out. But Caltech ranks 111th in free speech. There is a survey done last year of 257 colleges and universities, and they're halfway down at 111. The liberal to conservative ratio is 16-1. They score very low in disruptive content, a measure of how willing students are to shout, block the entrance, perform violence to stop controversial speakers. Basically, they will do it. A low ranking is bad. They ranked low in administrative support. Only 25% of students said that it was clear that Caltech would protect free speech on campus. They also had a red light rating based on the stoplight system, that the institute prioritizes other values over a commitment to free speech. And they ranked near bottom, 197th, for tolerance of conservative speakers. So that's sort of taking a different route, because again, I don't know if this comes from Caltech, but you have a guy that has multiple degrees.
Highly educated.
And is now a part-time teacher. And I'm starting to wonder if some of the is it the media, is it the universities, is it all of this? But there is something going on with young men that they are feeling like they are morally justified to go out and kill people that they don't agree with.
I mean, I wasn't so surprised until you're right. The investigation is ongoing and the truth will come out. But I have to say, I wasn't so surprised that he was a highly educated teacher. Surprise, surprise. I mean, look, I was a kid during the Reagan assassination attempt in 1981, but I remember it vividly, and I was shocked and I was very disappointed that John Hinckley, who was responsible for that, was pardoned a few years ago. I mean, he should have literally had the book thrown at him, as this young man should have. This was an attack on America. And I am so frustrated, even if you don't agree with President Trump, I am so frustrated by the political violence that, to your point, Brian, seems to have become almost celebrated on this country in many halls of politics.
Yeah, it's institutionalized and normalized. And here's where the break is for me. I agree with you. Something's definitely gone wrong, because self-awareness. I was an angry youth, broken home, divorced family. Sports were my outlet, but never once did I think about violence against others. And I think, to your point, this has become the norm. You don't have to search very far for the ideas. And we always talk about, we're parents here, we always talk about the malleability of youth, right? Toddlers, teenagers. What we're seeing now, it's still very malleable in the 20s and 30s, right? And we have to be paying attention as a society of the messages we're sending, because yes, under the banner of Jimmy Kimmel, it's comedic. No, it's actually tragic what you're saying. You're glorifying the widowing, the murder of a public figure. It's gone too far. I think for me, though, the data comes down, what can you do? How can you change the culture? You can't. You're not going to be able to do that fast. What you need to do is provide more protection, right? If you look at the number of threats against key figures in D.C., it was up 50% last year. This is becoming, remove the political debate, this becomes a security and a budget debate. You need more funds to protect, because this is the world we live in,
or just the funds you're supposed to have to protect. We obviously haven't talked about DHS yet today, but I just add that, Dig. And Secret Service is supposed to get paid in a certain way. It's not, but we still expect them to do their job. That, to me, is a big problem.
I wrote down there's a wild imbalance between the increase in radicalization of people, whether it's online, through rhetoric, through the exposure, and it's really a combination, online rhetoric, real world exposure, whether it's through educational institutions or even going to rallies, who you associate with, that radicalization, that indoctrination, and the lack of increase in the security and protection needed to offset the skyrocketing risk. There is a dangerous asymmetry between those two things. And on the left, is it intentional? Is this defunding, this lack of funding, this embrace of this indoctrination, is it intentional? I wanted to note, John Hinckley was not pardoned. That is incorrect.
He was released early?
John Hinckley was not. He was convicted. He was found not guilty by reason of insanity. You cannot pardon something that was.
Was he released early from incarceration?
Yes.
Is he a free man today?
Yes, Jonathan, but what you said was incorrect.
Okay, well, thank you for clarifying me.
He was not pardoned by anyone.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying me.
He is now out. That is the issue with when someone is found not guilty by reason of insanity, is that you can be deemed rehabilitated because he was put in essentially a mental institution, and he was released, I believe it was about 4 years ago.
Thank you for clarifying me. I never think he should be a free man, nor should this suspect be, in my opinion.
And as Jim Trusty pointed out, he said, I love to go up against expert testimony from psychiatrists when I have the facts on my side of somebody who got on a train with a bag of weapons, who went across went allegedly across the United States as evidence that someone was in their right mind.